Welcome back to Panda Audiobooks. Jian Wushuang has completed his treacherous journey and now steps into the boundless scale of the Grand Domain. In our last episode, Wushuang made his dramatic arrival in this higher-level domain, ready to face a world far more competitive and vast than anything he has ever known. Today, Wushuang asserts his dominance. Chapters 76 through 80 show Wushuang's first major steps in this grand domain. He quickly encounters local powers, arrogant geniuses and established factions who look down on newcomers. Wushuang is drawn into an immediate conflict, a clash of status and strength, forcing him to unleash his heavenly creation skill to teach the local elite a brutal lesson. This is a crucial battle to establish his reputation and open the doors to the domain's true cultivation centers. The new order begins now. Chapter 76 starts right away. Chapter 76. Formless Sword Ripple. Ha ha, freshman, you should be careful. Nangong-jie's laugh rang out on martial arts practice field. Chew! A cold sword shadow broke the air and moved towards Jian Wushuang. The sword edge was cold enough to tear through anything. Formless swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Jian Wushuang was very familiar with this sword skill. Nangong-jie was using the first move of the formless sword art, Blood Shadow. Jian Wushuang drew his sword and used the formless sword art too. The two sword shadows were both incredibly fast. They entwined with each other like two serpents, then separated immediately after colliding. Fuck off! Followed by a howl, the long sword in Jian Wushuang's hand drew up immediately, filled with killing intent. A fresh bloody sword shadow moved through the air like it was dancing in the wind. In an instant, the air was cut through directly. Ha ha! Nangong-jie laughed. Then he moved his wrist and used the same sword movement. It started with the first move, Blood Shadow, then came the second move, Sword-killing movement. They were tied again at the end. Time for a different skill. Jian Wushuang had a cold look in his eyes. Whoosh! A sword shadow immediately stabbed out. It seemed very slow, but the real speed was astonishingly fast. The fourth move of formless swordsmanship, 100 illusions. The fourth move? Ridiculous! Nangong-jie yelled out and grinned. The same slow sword came out from Nangong-jie. They struck each other and then separated at the same time. Jian Wushuang stared at Nangong-jie with a dignified look. Swordsman, this is your level of strength after earnest cultivation in Dragon Palace for 3 months. Nangong-jie stared at Jian Wushuang with a little derision. It is really brave of you to take out those 12,000 points and fight with only this much strength. Stupid enough. I will show you my real strength. After saying that, Nangong-jie prepared to make his next move. Wang! It seemed slow, but it was actually an astonishingly fast strike. Nangong-jie still used the fourth move, 100 illusions. It was the same move, but it was twice as fast as before. The previous sword strike was already extremely fast. How did he manage to reach a speed that was twice as fast as before? So fast! Jian Wushuang's complexion couldn't help changing when he saw that terrifying speed sword. You lose, Nangong-jie growled in an excited voice at that moment. Will he be defeated? All the people around there paid attention to the scene, watched as the sword light approached Jian Wushuang. Hum! After the hum, sword essence of earth was released from Jian Wushuang's sword. A thorough and majestic sword shadow struck out. The sword shadow seemed to be overlapped by numerous sword shadows, striking out violently. It seemed like a 100 million pound mountain, grinding everything as it violently moved forwards. What? Nangong-jie's complexion changed a lot. Before he could respond, the 100 million pound mountain reached him. Pang! The loud roar shook the whole space instantly, with its power forming several shock waves. It even swept away many disciples of Dragon Palace that were too close at that time. After that strike, on the battleground, Nangong-jie was knocked back awkwardly. He quickly noticed a sharp pain in his palm and a little blood. A giant sword scar, nearly a foot wide, was left on the ground in front of him. Lots of disciples of Dragon Palace around there gasped after seeing the sword scar. It was the 7th move, Formless Sword Wave. Some disciples of Dragon Palace immediately recognized the swordsmanship Jian Wushuang used just now. Formless sword wave. Nangong Jie felt stressed. There were a lot of sword skills in the secret pavilion. That included some famous ones, such as Formless Sword Wave. He knew that Formless Sword Wave was quite fitting for warriors who comprehended the sword essence of Earth. In general, if you could fully use the 6th move, you would be able to pass the 5th level in the Dragon Gate. As for the 7th move, it was no problem to get past the 6th level in the Dragon Gate. I was too careless. I didn't expect his comprehension of the sword essence of Earth to be much higher than the sword essence of Gale, but this is the end. I will not give him another chance to use that move. Nangong Jie thought solemnly. The 7th move, Formless Sword Wave, was powerful. A sane person would not confront the toughness with toughness. However, warriors who comprehended the sword essence of Gale depended on speed, rather than strength. Nangong Jie. Jian Wushuang's voice rang out suddenly. His black eyes stared at this Nangong Jie with indifference. You said you would show me your real strength just now, and I've seen it. Jian Wushuang spoke, with a grin that was similar to a blade. Now, I'll let you see my real strength. After saying that, Jian Wushuang held the triple kill sword with both hands, raising the long sword high. Wangwang tilde 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 the splendid sword essence of Earth reached its peak at that moment. Boom! Such a terrifying sword stroke. Before the sword stroke landed, everyone already felt a horrible power was continuously condensing. The momentum in Jian Wushuang's triple kill sword increased suddenly and sharply. Everyone saw a giant sword shadow forming slowly, 3 meters long and ½ meter wide. Oppression. The moment the giant sword shadow formed, the oppressive atmosphere reached its peak. The air seemed to shiver. Formless Sword Wave, the 8th move. Jian Wushuang shouted out suddenly. The huge streak of sword shadow drew everyone's attention. With a soaring aura, it wavered slightly and then lashed out. The world suddenly changed colors. The 8th move? Can it really be the 8th move? Nangong Jie's eye opened widely. He was already shocked when Jian Wushuang used the 7th move. Now, Jian Wushuang was about to use the 8th move. It was well known that anyone who was able to perform the 7th move was qualified to reach the 6th level. The 8th move. The Formless Sword Wave, 8th move, along with his comprehension of the sword essence of Earth, was enough to pass the 7th level. 7th floor. Although he fought fiercely with the keeper of the 7th floor for a long time when he went through the Dragon Gate yesterday, he knew that it was not a fierce fight. Instead, it was a very suffocating fight because he was completely suppressed by the keeper. He only managed to prolong the fight for a while by relying on his speed. He clearly understood that he was far from being able to pass the 7th level. But now, someone who entered Dragon Palace for only 3 months ago, surpassed him completely in comprehension of sword essence. Nangong Jie was dumbfounded when the splendid, giant sword shadow hacked directly towards him. Following that, an unprecedented look of madness appeared on his face. Swordsman, you made me do this. Chapter 77. Profound Gold Core Realm. The huge and mighty sword shadow crashed down. The 8th move. He can master the 8th move. All the disciples of Dragon Palace held their breath. Go away! Nangong Jie shouted suddenly with a tremendous spiritual power erupting out of him. What? Everyone was surprised. An icy sword shadow erupted with incomparable power, struck out directly and tore the sword shadow into pieces immediately. The mighty power then turned into a strong breeze and dissipated. However, after tearing the sword shadow into pieces, the power of that sword shadow still persisted and turned into a light flying straight towards Jian Wushuang. What's this? Shockingly, Jian Wushuang swung his sword against it immediately. Clang! A violent power crashed over Jian Wushuang with a loud bang. He was forced to step back, each step heavy enough to crack the ground. When he came to a stop, he shook his stinging palms. Jian Wushuang looked up at Nangong Jie again with an extremely serious expression. Nangong Jie, I have looked down on you. I would have never thought that you would not only hide your comprehension of sword essence, but also your cultivation of spiritual power. Maybe only a few people knew you were at Profound Gold Core Realm in Dragon Palace. Profound Gold Core Realm. Right. This moment, the spiritual power of Nangong Jie had reached Profound Gold Core Realm. When the disciples of Dragon Palace on martial art practice field noticed his spiritual power, a stir was raised. Profound Gold Core Realm? Nangong Jie has reached Profound Gold Core Realm. A man who has reached Profound Gold Core Realm challenged a new guy who was at the level of Spiritual C to a duel? Nangong Jie might be going too far. The gazes of disciples of Dragon Palace looking at Nangong Jie suddenly changed. One should know that one has his own pride as a genius. Anyway, Jian Wushuang had just reached Spiritual C realm. As a primordial gold core, Nangong Jie was just bullying. And now, Nangong Jie had revealed that his cultivation of spiritual power reached Profound Gold Core Realm. A man who has reached Profound Gold Core Realm challenged a warrior who was at the level of Spiritual C to a duel? It was far more than bullying, this was shameless. Nangong Jie, as a Profound Gold Core Realm, you challenged my bro to a duel? You are so shameless, so brazen. If I were you, I would hide my face in disgrace. Wang Yuan shouted from the sidelines. Heh. Nangong Jie looked around and said in his chilliest tone, the world has its law of the jungle, and the Dragon Palace has too. How would you fight a duel to win points if you don't even know how to hide your strength? Swordsman. Nangong Jie looked at Jian Wushuang. You, as a freshman entering Dragon Palace for less than 3 months, it's an honor to force me to this situation. I will still gladly accept your 12,000 points. Boom! Nangong Jie pushed off the ground, which cracked at once. With an ear-piercing rushing sound, Nangong Jie slashed with his sword. It was still formless swordsmanship. Under the outburst of spiritual power of Profound Gold Core Realm, the speed and power had both reached a brand new level. The sword light pierced the void and whistled. Its amazing speed and intense power were heart-stopping. Disciples of Dragon Palace held their breath as they watched this. Nangong Jie, do you think you can defeat me like this? Ridiculous. Jian Wushuang sneered. Although Nangong Jie's spiritual power was at Profound Gold Core Realm, he was still calm. Reincarnation sword skill. When Nangong Jie's swordsmanship swept through, Jian Wushuang engaged reincarnation sword skill. The vast sword essence of Earth was maximized in the meantime. Reincarnation sword skill, a defensive sword skill, which could be exchanged for with 500 points. It could not be compared to formless sword wave. However, if it was properly used, its power could overcome the formless sword wave. Moreover, because of the low points needed for reincarnation sword skill and its outwardly simple technique compared to formless sword wave and formless swordsmanship, Jian Wushuang could master this sword skill perfectly. Jian Wushuang has completely mastered the reincarnation sword skill in the last 3 months, even reaching the peak. And now he used the reincarnation sword skill to its full potential. Clang! 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 Continuous clanging sounded around the martial art practice field. The surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace were shocked to see this. How fast! How strong! This swordsmanship is so fast, so amazing. Look, the swordsman is being completely suppressed, he seems to be losing. That is not necessarily the case. Don't you see that the swordsman has resisted Nangong Jie's swordsmanship even though he is being suppressed all the time? His defense is watertight. Right. He has mastered the reincarnation sword skill completely and put it to good use. It won't be easy for Nangong Jie to win. Lots of disciples started discussing in whispers. On the battlefield, sword flash struck at high speed and from multiple angles. Nangong Jie's swordsmanship, perception of sword essence and cultivation of spiritual power of the Profound Gold Core Realm had reached perfection. The heart-palpitating sword flash generated an irresistible feeling among the surrounding disciples. But what about Jian Wushuang? The sword kept moving, dauntless. His swordsmanship seemed simple, but resisted all the sword shadows perfectly. It was true that Nangong Jie's sword flash was powerful, and it had completely suppressed Jian Wushuang, who had no chance to strike back. Still, Jian Wushuang was resisting every attack from Nangong Jie. Well, although his cultivation of spiritual has reached profound gold core realm and his power is much better than mine, I can still defend. When I use my reincarnation swordsmanship, I can weaken the power of his swordsmanship. Otherwise, even if I could block, its impact force would be enough to defeat me. But now, he can dream about my defeat. Jian Wushuang's expression was cold. The most exquisite part of reincarnation sword skill is its ability to wear the opponent down, using the sword strokes to weaken the power gradually. Finally, the power from the attacks had no impact to him. This boy is so hard to deal with. Nangong expression became unsightly as his attacks were blocked by Jian Wushuang over and over again. Chapter 78. Impudence. I cannot defeat him quickly even with my full strength. His defense is perfect and can even disperse force. Perhaps I could defeat him directly if my swordsmanship much faster than his. Nangong said to himself. He needed a stronger and faster swordsmanship to defeat Jian Wushuang, but he has already used his full strength. How can he make it faster? There is only one way to defeat him, though it's a bit disgraceful. However, even if it's shameful, if I win, I will receive 12,000 points. Nangong face turned grim. He had already made up his mind to defeat Jian Wushuang in the most unethical and dishonorable way. That way is through spiritual power consumption. Spiritual power is the source of power. The importance can be imagined. During the battle, spiritual power was constantly consumed, but it has a limit. Nangong decided that he would compete against Jian Wushuang using the consumption of spiritual power. After all, he was in the primordial gold core realm and had reached the profound gold core realm. However, Jian Wushuang was only in the level of spiritual sea. There were 2 sub-realms between them, including a true realm. Under normal circumstances, Nangong should have much more spiritual power Jian Wushuang. Naturally, he should last longer during battle. Once Jian Wushuang's spiritual power runs out, he would win. Phew! 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 The roar of swordsmanship continued. But, as the battle continued, the disciples of Dragon Palace began to understand Nangong intention. How shameless Nangong is. Wang Yuan gnashed his teeth. He's going too far. As someone in the profound gold core realm, he should stop and end it in a draw if he can't quickly defeat an opponent in the spiritual sea realm. That way, he would suffer less embarrassment. But now, he actually wants to rely on his advantage in spiritual power to compete with Swordsman. It's a disgrace. Even if he wins, I would despise him. It's so humiliating. He even makes me, an expert of the gold core realm, feel extreme shame. The disciples of Dragon Palace looked at Nangong with disdain. Even the 2 who came with Nangong looked at each other for a moment with complex feelings. They also thought Nangong is being ignoble. However, considering that they had loaned their points to him, if he won, they would also benefit. So they didn't say anything. HMPH, idiots. During the battle, Nangong glanced at the surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace, sneering in his heart. It is disgraceful, so what? The winner takes all. I will even do despicable acts to win those 12,000 points. Lose, lose. Nangong watched Jian Wushuang, paying attention to his aura of spiritual power, but his complexion quickly changed. What's the matter? This is impossible. It was unbelievable. Yes, he could not believe it. He has been fighting with me for so long, but his spiritual power it is not weakening at all. Nangong looked startled. As someone in the profound gold core realm, he has already consumed more than half of his spiritual power while fighting for so long. But what about Jian Wushuang? His aura was still grand, his swordsmanship was still sharp, and his spiritual power was still strong. There were no signs of him weakening. How is that possible? Nangong couldn't believe what he was seeing. However, when Jian Wushuang saw the rich expression on Nangong face, the corner of his mouth lifted, turning into a cold smile. Spiritual power consumption. You want to defeat me with only spiritual power consumption. Jian Wushuang really wanted to mock Nangong at this moment. He practices the heavenly creation skill. Although it seemed that he was in spiritual sea realm, the spiritual sea realm for the heavenly creation skill is the ultimate spirit sea. What is the ultimate spirit sea? It is a vast sea of spiritual power. When he first broke through to the ultimate spirit sea, he had 10 times as much spiritual power as ordinary warriors in the spiritual sea realm. However, he kept practicing these last 3 months. Not only that, he had eaten and absorbed the effects of 21 first-class heavenly spirit pills. Now, he was at the second stage of the ultimate spirit sea, endless spiritual power. He had 100 times more than an ordinary warrior in spiritual sea realm. 100 times more spiritual power. And Nangong Jie, in the profound gold core realm, only had several times that of ordinary warriors in the spiritual sea realm. How dare he compete against Jian Wushuang using consumption of spiritual power? It was like a novice warrior in sword principle complementing his swordsmanship is in front of a master of swordsmanship. It was stupid. Just ridiculous. It's impossible, impossible. Nangong Jie's face had become extremely pale. He could suppress Jian Wushuang in a fight, but he couldn't win. Adding to that, his consumption of spiritual power was far more than Jian Wushuang's. Eventually, he would lose. Swordsman, stop. Can we end this in a tie? Nangong Jie said quickly. A tie. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang could not help cursing. Nangong Jie, I knew you were shameless, but I did not expect you to be this shameless. It is already ridiculous for you, an expert in the profound gold core realm, to fight with me, someone in the spiritual sea realm. When you realized that you could not defeat me directly, you even tried to defeat me using the consumption of spiritual power. But that did not work. Now you know that your consumption is faster than mine, and you actually have the guts to say that you want to end this in a tie. Nangong Jie, be a man. I have never met someone who is as shameless as you. Jian Wushuang cursed him openly, with no mercy, while the surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace looked at Nangong Jie in disdain. At first, he did not want to end with a tie. Now that he was going to lose, he wanted to stop with a tie. He was treating everyone like they were fools. Bastard. Nangong Jie tensed up. Now, with more than 90% of his spiritual power gone, his lack of spiritual power led to a sharp reduction in the speed and power of his swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang, who had been suppressed by him, struck back at this moment. OM! 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 His sword shadows were displayed majestically using the sword essence of earth. Jian Wushuang was obviously still at his peak and his sword continued to strike out. Nangong Jie had been completely defeated. Finally, a cold sword shadow swept out directly across Nangong Jie's arm, while Jian Wushuang used his foot to kick him. Nangong Jie flew back in an arc, like a parabola, eventually falling onto the ground. Nangong Jie lost. The whole martial arts practice field fell into silence. And at this moment, Jian Wushuang walked to Nangong Jie slowly, under everyone's gaze, looking down at him indifferently. You lost. 12,000 points. Pay up. Chapter 79, Su Lai. On the martial arts practice field, the corner of Nangong Jie's mouth contained a trace of blood. After slowly standing up, his expression grew ferocious and was filled with resistance. Yes, he was not willing. He did not want to concede, even though he was defeated by Jian Wushuang after using his full power. However, no matter how unwilling he was, it was a fact that he lost to Jian Wushuang. He could not quibble. Ultimately, he could only tremble as he gave 12,000 points to Jian Wushuang. On the other side, the two disciples who had previously loaned points to Nangong Jie had a pale look. After seeing more than 12,000 points in his token, Jian Wushuang grinned and faced Nangong Jie again. Nangong Jie, I have some advice for you. Natural iniquity can be forgiven, but human iniquity cannot. Nangong Jie trembled physically and mentally. Suddenly. It's a good sentence. This rookie of the Dragon Palace is becoming more and more arrogant. A strong voice sounded out in the martial arts practice field, slowly followed by a red-robed man with a saber on his back. Everyone looked turned to face him at the same time. Su Lai. It is him. The tyrant, Su Lai. After seeing him, many of the disciples of Dragon Palace that were present couldn't help exhaling a breath of cold air. Obviously, they were in awe of this man. Su Lai. Why is he here? Wang Yuan's expression instantly changed after seeing this person. Who is Su Lai? At this moment, young Xianxia, who was always silent, frowned and asked. He sensed a mighty pressure that he had only felt from Bai Cheng since the time he joined Dragon Palace 3 months ago. The tyrant Su Lai, a top genius among the disciples of Dragon Palace. Su Lai was the only one who could possibly be compared with Bai Cheng, before second brother joined Dragon Palace, said Wang Yuan. Hearing this, young Xianxia's eyes could not help but squint. A warrior, who is in the profound gold core realm, was defeated by a rookie who has only been here for 3 months. Not only that, the rookie is only in the spiritual sea realm. Nangong Jie, you are definitely shameful enough, said the burly man, Su Lai, with a laugh. Nangong Jie had a pale look on his face. If these words were said by someone else, he would be furious. However, these words were spoken by Su Lai, who was also known as a tyrant. He was afraid to display even a little bit of a temper in front of Su Lai. Su Lai glanced at Nangong Jie, but he was too lazy to talk to him. Looking at Jian Wushuang though, he said, "Little guy, your name is Swordsman, right?" "Yes." Jian Wushuang nodded with a serious expression. When Su Lai appeared in front of him and looked at him, all the pores in Jian Wushuang's body were directly tied up. This feeling felt similar to being looked at by a fierce ancient beast. Jian Wushuang immediately understood that Su Lai's strength was terrifying. "I have heard of you. When you entered Dragon Palace 3 months ago, you only made it through the 4th level. But now, 3 months later, you should be able to make it through the 7th level with your comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth. That speed is matchless in Dragon Palace. Such a genius, I can't help being interested in you. Why not fight with me?" Su Lai said casually. "Battle with you." Jian Wushuang changed his countenance, but he immediately shook his head without any hesitation, and said, "Sorry, I'm not interested." Jian Wushuang did not want to battle with Su Lai at all. The reason was simple. Su Lai's strength was terrifying. Although he never made a move and just stood in front of Jian Wushuang knew that he was not this man's opponent. It was hard to say whether or not he could even take one move from Su Lai. The gap in strength was incredible and Jian Wushuang had no interest in being abused. "You are refusing me." Su Lai's countenance became clouded, but he suddenly grinned and said, "I don't want to make a bet with you, I just want a pure fight with you." "Your refusal. What good is it?" Boom! The floor under Su Lai's feet exploded instantly and the figure of Su Lai rushed forwards. At first glance, it looked like a mass of hot flames was fiercely racing towards Jian Wushuang. Oh no! At the moment when Su Lai started moving, 2 figures also rushed out, simultaneously, from behind Jian Wushuang. Those 2 people, one was Yang Xianxia, and the other was Su Ru, who rarely spoke. As for Wang Yuan, he had only gone through the 4th level, so he was unable to help Jian Wushuang. 2 traces of flowing light appeared simultaneously, in front of Jian Wushuang. Young Xianxia's eyes were cold and his saber was already drawn. In Su Ru's hands, there was a 2-meter-long, thick and heavy sword. Her slender figure raised the heavy sword and chopped out. "Ha ha, you want to stop me by yourselves." Su Lai laughed while clenching his 5 fingers. Then, a terrifying flame filled with the essence of raging fire was released. It was as if he could burn everything around it. Then, Su Lai used his fist to directly attack them. A violent force suddenly rushed towards them. Young Xianxia was someone who had gone through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. And Su Ru, herself, had gone through the 7th level. As for Su Lai, on the surface, his strength was equal to a warrior who went through the 7th level. Bang! Bang! 2 deep crashes sounded and the figures of Yang Xianxia and Su Ru were both knocked backwards. They were knocked back forcefully. It was not because they moved backwards. The next moment, Su Lai struck out with his fist again. This fist smashed directly toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang quickly lifted his sword and executed the reincarnation sword skill with his full power in an attempt to parry it. Bang! A terrifying power arrived. The force was more than Jian Wushuang could parry, even with the reincarnation sword skill. Subsequently, the figure of Jian Wushuang was sent flying back under that terrifying force, smashing onto the ground behind him. Silence. Everyone at the martial arts practice field looked startled. The only emerging voice was from disciples of Dragon Palace swallowing their saliva. Fearsome. Similar words echoed in everyone's mind. It was indeed terrifying. In only a flash, Jian Wushuang, Yang Zixuan, and Su Ru were defeated without any room to even struggle. So strong. Jian Wushuang slowly rose to his feet and wiped the blood from his lips, but there was a trace of shock in his eyes. His cultivation of spiritual power absolutely reaches the exceptional gold core realm. Not only that, his comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth is far higher than mine. Jian Wushuang thought secretly, I have gone through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. But based on his attack, I know that his comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth is definitely higher than mine. Yang Zixuan had a serious look on his face. You too. Su Lai clasped his hands and looked at Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. A word of advice, as rookies, you better keep a low profile. Dragon Palace is not as simple as you think. What you are seeing now is only the tip of the iceberg. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan were both startled. What they had seen of Dragon Palace so far was only the tip of the iceberg. Su Lai was too lazy to explain any more and he wanted to leave. But, after only taking 2 steps, he stopped suddenly. He looked to the side, smiled, and said, Bai Cheng, you have been watching for so long. Have you seen enough? If you are itching for a fight, I don't mind playing with you. Chapter 80. The Earthly Dragon List. Bai Cheng. It's Bai Cheng. Following Su Lai's gaze, the crowd immediately saw a white-haired man dressed in a white garment on the edge of the martial arts practice field. White hair like snow. He, Bai Cheng, was the top person of Dragon Palace. As everyone was looking at Su Lai, no one noticed Bai Cheng's arrival. Su Lai, I hope I didn't upset you. Bai Cheng squinted at Su Lai. You don't provoke me, but just looking at you puts me in a bad mood. What can you do? If you feel bad, we can play a game and take a bet. Su Lai sneered and gave a bold look. Bai Cheng's countenance was clouded and he shouted in a low voice. You don't get it. One day sooner or later, I'll beat you down completely. Ha ha, I'm waiting, but before this, you can think of ways to climb up the earthly dragon list. Su Lai smiled and then left. Humph. Bai Cheng gave a cold grunt and then left. This scene made many disciples of Dragon Palace on the martial arts practice field look confused. It's said that Bai Cheng is the strongest disciple in the Dragon Palace. But why do I perceive that Bai Cheng seemed to be afraid of Su Lai? I don't think so. I think that Bai Cheng doesn't dare to battle with Su Lai. What on earth happened? Those disciples of Dragon Palace were confounded, as were Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. Soon after, people on the martial arts practice field began to disperse. In the Dragon Palace. Palace Master White. Appearing in front of Palace Master White, Su Lai said with great respect but not the previous superciliousness on the martial arts practice field, I have given Swordsman and Yang Zixuan some lessons based on your order. Okay. I have seen it. Good job. Palace Master White nodded slightly and said, Swordsman and Yang Zixuan have high talent, especially Swordsman. 3 months ago, he merely was at the 4th level. But now, he is qualified to go through the 7th level. In the history of our Dragon Palace, only several people could match with him in terms of the speed of his advancement. I have great hopes for him. However, we should give them some obstacles. After all, they are still rookies. Hearing this, Su Lai could not help pursing his lips. It was known that he was similar to Jian Wushuang when he joined the Dragon Palace. He did not put other disciples of Dragon Palace in his eyes. But Palace Master White also asked a powerhouse to let him face some obstacles. He was badly defeated in that battle. He became more humble after that. In the manor, Jian Wushuang and another 3 people were drinking, sitting at a stone desk. Ha ha, I'm very happy looking at the defeated countenance of Nangong Jie. Wang Yuan sneered. He's arrogant and shameless. He is only at the level of the profound gold core realm. But he still wanted to vanquish third brother by the consumption of the spiritual power. What a foolish man. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and said, Nangong Jie is not important, seeing how he's not a threat in the future. As for Su Lai, his strength still shocks me until now. So do I. Yang Zishuan also nodded. I thought that the people who could be qualified to be my rival in the whole Dragon Palace was only Bai Cheng. However, it's not the case now. Dragon Palace is not as simple as it appears, Su Ru on the side said with low voice. I have gone through the 7th level, so I know something. Though there are only 16 people that have passed through the 7th level, there are many others who have the strength to go through it. But they don't do it, so nobody knows them. I conservatively estimate that there are at least 30 people that have the strength to pass through the 7th level, or even the 8th level. On the surface, there is only Bai Cheng and your second brother going through the 8th level. But in fact, there are at least 5 people who can complete it. Su Lai is one of those 5. Su Lai has reached the level of exceptional gold core realm a long time ago. So Bai Cheng would be vanquished if they battle, although Bai Cheng's comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth is higher than his. So that's what it is. It could be the reason that Bai Cheng seems not to dare to battle Su Lai. Yang Zishuan nodded secretly. We all looked down on Dragon Palace. Jian Wushuang shook his head and smiled. By the way, what is the earthly dragon list Su Lai mentioned? I know it, Wang Yuan said this time. Earthly dragon list, set by the Golden Dragon Palace, lists the 100 strongest powerhouses of all experts of the gold core realm in the Qianzhong dynasty. If someone can be listed on Earthly Dragon list, he would stand at the top of pyramid of all those of the gold core. All of them could vanquish those at the primordial gold core. The higher rank, the greater the strength. It's said that the experts ranked at the top 10 of Earthly Dragon list could match or even kill warriors at the level of the Yin-Yang Void Realm. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. Match, even kill the warriors of the Yin-Yang Void Realm? It should be known that the gap between spiritual Sea Realm and Gold Core was huge. And the gap between Gold Core and Yin-Yang Void Realm was even larger. A warrior of primordial Golden Pill Realm was like a monster if he could match with a warrior of Yin-Yang Void Realm. It would be legendary if a warrior of primordial Gold Core killed a warrior of Yin-Yang Void Realm. It's true. Each powerhouse listed in the top 10 of the Earthly Dragon list has this ability, Wang Yuan continued saying. By the way, the Earth Dragon list seems to be at the secret pavilion. If you are curious about it, you can swap points for it and read it carefully. Okay. Jian Wushuang left toward the secret pavilion without any hesitation. Hearing this, he was filled with ambition to rise on the Earthly Dragon list. Soon after, Jian Wushuang was back. He swapped 100 points for an Earthly Dragon list in the secret pavilion. Although it was called a list, it was a thick book. Jian Wushuang opened the first page. Qianzhong dynasty is vast and is filled with talented heroes. Over time, old people are replaced by new people. Lots of heroes die and are forgotten. Our Golden Dragon Palace compiles the Earthly Dragon list and the Heavenly Dragon list by recording the heroes in the Qianzhong dynasty. Earth Dragon list record the 100 strongest of the primordial Golden Pill realm in our Qianzhong dynasty. Jian Wushuang was fascinated. There is not only the Earth Dragon list but also the Heavenly Dragon list. The Earthly Dragon list records the experts of the primordial gold core, and the Heavenly Dragon list should record those of the Yin-Yang Void realm. Jian Wushuang kept reading. The 100 superiors of the Golden Pill realm on the Earthly Dragon list all had outstanding battle results, and their strength was recognized by many sects. If you want to be listed on the Earth Dragon list, you need great battle results. Reading the first page, Jian Wushuang continued reading the second page right now. There were some introductions of the 100 powerhouses listed on the Earth Dragon list on the second page. And with that overwhelming display of force, we conclude Chapter 80. Wushuang has successfully asserted his dominance in the Azure Heaven Domain, proving that his power is not limited by his origin. He has crushed the arrogance of the local elite and, in doing so, has likely attracted the attention of a major power or a protective elder. The path to the true resources and cultivation secrets of this domain is now opening before him. However, such a dramatic debut also creates powerful, vengeful enemies. Join us next time for chapters 81, 82, 83, 84, and 85, as Wushuang attempts to secure a foothold in a major sect or academy in this new domain, facing stringent entry trials and a conspiracy that traces back to his original homeland. Thank primary listener for tuning in to Panda Audiobooks. If you are ready for the next level of conflict, please subscribe and hit that notification bell.